All right, we're live here. Fuck you, Zeus. Haven't been here for a while. It's been I was on the road for better part of 3 weeks and missed 3 Sundays. I don't know if anybody missed that, but if you did, sorry about that. But I'm back to it, and I'm going back on the road. That's kind of one of the reasons I kind of picked the subject for today. Um, I got a few things going on here that's kind of different. The one thing is I bought one of these hoop light jobbers. I'm trying to figure out the lighting that I'm going to be using. I got this thing microphone. Let's move that out. I don't know if that's better if it's kind of in the no. Anyway, and that's with the hoop lighting. But it's got this. See, it's that you can see the hoops in my glasses. If I don't wear glasses, then it works well. So if you wear glasses, so just if you're considering one of these things, one of these jobbers, it's got a little. Can you see it? I don't know, but anyway, it's you could change the lighting to different. I'm going to put a little bit more in there. I like the concept, and I got it in a weird position, so maybe it won't be as much glare. If I look down, it won't be glare. Anyway, that's one of the things that why I'm kind of like flustered a little bit today. I've been taking care of a lot of vehicle issues and that coming off of the road. I had a different vehicle. I don't want to say a new vehicle, but I had engine problems with the other one, so I had to change it out, buy a new one from a dealership. I had some problems. You buy somebody else's problems, kind of thing. Whenever you buy a used one. Long story short, though, I've been working on that and getting that back together so I could take another road trip. I got to go up, actually, not so much for gigging. In fact, well, although I did pick up a couple gigs up in Chicago that are coming up in August here. What do I have? I have I've got the Cabana Lounge, the beautiful Cabana Lounge on Cumberland. But you can go to my website if anybody's interested in my music stuff. My website's markzeus.com. There's links to everything that I do there. And also today's topic being bare bones touring is what I do. It's kind of half of my life is kind of like doing various. I have to, and that applies to local stuff too. A lot of what I'll cover here and what I'll cover on other episodes that will address touring issues and that can be applied to the short terms. I do stuff in Texas here, and I've gone up through Dallas, stayed a couple nights in Dallas, hit a couple open mics, or maybe I have a gig. I haven't had a gig in Dallas in a while, but I'm trying to reestablish up there. And I remember one week I went there, and then I went down to San Marcos for the songwriter event. There was another songwriter event in New Braunfels. So I spent like a week going that way. So little bounces around. I'll go down to Galveston, but I usually don't stay down to Galveston. I'll drive back up. But I've considered that if I was going to do back-to-back nights down in that area. If anybody doesn't know, I live in Houston, Texas, which is it's about a little over an hour from where I'm at to get down to Galveston Island, which is the beach island town, the Gulf of Mexico. So there's much stuff that goes on there. But what I'm going to basically discuss is more long haul budget touring. You might say budget. It's like just a working class artist on a budget, on a real low budget. These are things that I kind of do and how I've developed it. Some of this stuff is stuff that you probably wouldn't consider. Some you might. If you're looking at it for long term, saying, how can I make this work? And I know a lot of musicians that do that tour, especially the solo. I do it as a solo, although I may hook up with other musicians in the various towns that I go to. I perform a lot of solo shows in that along the way. Band issue, as the more people you add, the more problems you add to, or logistics. I didn't say problems, more logistics, and you have to put up that many people, figure it all. When I go up sometimes into certain towns, I might have a friend that'll put me, I can sleep on a couch, or they might have an extra room or something, and I'll do that. When I'm in Chicago, I have an old buddy that I stay with. So my tours are based around a few different factors. I haven't gone often into areas where I didn't really know anybody. But I'll explain as we go on here. I'm not going to make this very long presentation, but I wanted to at least address this since I'm kind of in the middle of it right now. I'm going to be taking off again. When I'm here in Houston, I go up to like I said, the Chicago area. So I go through Illinois. I go through East Texas. Usually, my normal route is East Texas through Arkansas, West Memphis up 55 to 57 through Illinois. You go a little bit through Missouri, Panhandle, Missouri, and then into Illinois, and up that way. Sometimes I'll go around to Nashville. I'll continue into Tennessee through Memphis into Nashville, and I go to Indianapolis. I might do that on the way up or the way back. I'm kind of arranging that for the fall. That's kind of what I'm doing. This short trip here is just going to be back and forth to Chicago. I have actually a high school reunion I'm going to coming up, and there's another reunion from the Little League buddies that I had, and that. So it's going to be my little reunion tour, sandwiched in between a couple gigs that I have, one at the Cabana Lounge, and the other one's at the Sports Nook in Elmwood Park. So anybody wanted to know if anybody from Chicago is watching this, I'm going to be coming up soon. So definitely check it out if you can. The other thing I want to plug too is I did that 30 days on the road travel log. It's like 23 episodes, I believe, I put up there. It's a lot. There's a little, but you could pick any one, and it could be fun. It could be boring for you, but you might, if you want to check one out and see if you got some time to kill on YouTube. This YouTube stuff that would be on my Mark Zeus Music page on YouTube channel, Mark Zeus Music channel. You go to the playlist there, and you can start from the first one. And the first one's pretty good, I thought. And I go various wherever I'm going. I was taking that one trip. This was about a little over a year ago. It was July of last year, and so that might be a way if you want to kind of check out and see this is what your semi-average musician on the road kind of goes through if they're in that mode. I'm not a star. I'm not in the upper echelon of the folk scene. I go out there and I try to get people to hear my music. I have various gigs along the way. Some where I know some people, some that I don't. But I'm just, I've been doing this for a while to get on the road. I've made some fans along the way in various towns, but still on that bare bones, budget. And most people are. If you're in a situation, if you're doing it as a vacation and you got a lot of money, you got a paid vacation and stuff, maybe you handle things differently. But this will also be for people in general that just want to kind of do a little grassroots tour, get up through some of these areas and see what's going on, and no matter where you go, these are like things that I do to kind of save money and to save time, to make things efficient as much as I can. So I'll start from there. Is driving. I talked a little bit about the route that I take. Now, when you're driving, you have to choose a route. And normally, if you're driving, you're going to be either on interstates or you're going to be on like state or federal U.S. highways. So that I put those into two general categories. Should I take the interstate or should I go on the highways? Which has their advantage. Interstates have their advantages and disadvantages, and so do the state highways. So I'll kind of go over those a little bit from my perspective, what that would be. So if I'm driving and I want to choose a route and I want to go via the interstates, here's one of the reasons I would maybe choose the interstates. It's more consistent speed limits. I don't want to have to say that you have to stay aware. You should always stay aware when you're driving, but it isn't. You got to really, if you're on the highway systems and that there's a lot of changing. That's kind of a negative, I think, is that constantly changing speed limits on a lot of those highways. When I take 59 up, Okay, it's freeway for a while, and then all of a sudden you'll hit past Livingston. You start getting into Lufkin and stuff. Now you have to try, and you have to change roads. You have to get off at an exit to keep on the highway. So you have to keep aware of where that next exit's going to be that you have to stay on. So it's like they connect little freeways as you go up. It's common for a lot of these state and U.S. highways. You follow a certain route up. Like Route 66 was kind of similar, where you followed that. Everybody, that's the famous Route 66, Chicago to California. But when they made the interstates, people now are taking the interstates, and it kind of like makes the highway system, Route 66 now, a lot of ghost towns. So that's what happened with the interstate interjecting into our travel habits. People were not taking those scenic trips. So that's an advantage of taking a smaller highway, is you do go through some of these towns. If you don't have a schedule where you have to stay ahead, and you have to, you're looking to save time. So you're going to be, just coming through towns. There's interesting stuff. I mean, and just run through some ghost towns or some real eerie type situations too. And the advantage to taking those roads to the state and U.S. highways is that you'll run into more local business. There's still a bunch of the local business that stays along those highways. So you see there's diversity and small town life, and smaller cities and smaller communities that you'll go through. You'll hit lights. That's a disadvantage. Obviously slows you down. But if you aren't worried too much about time, that might be a thing. So yeah, speed limits, no lights on interstates. So if I want to get somewhere quickly and I have the option and I know it's going to save me time, I'm definitely going to take the interstate. It's a little more boring. It's like, unless you're going through the Rocky Mountains or something, and Glenwood Canyon and all that, it's an interstate through there that's beautiful. But the way I take it's kind of, you got a lot of cornfields and that, and then there's beauty in that, I suppose, but that only lasts so long. And a lot of straight driving and that. And I like straight and flat because it's easy, doesn't tire you out as much as doing mountains and having to stop consistently in that. So that's a reason that I would take interstates overall in a general sense for that. If I'm looking to make time, for sure, looking to make time. And another note here, yes. So if you're on the interstates, you can imagine now you're dealing with more corporate businesses. These are big chains. Okay, if you ever see if there's restaurants at a stop off an interstate, it's usually McDonald's and Arby's and you name Burger King and Kentucky Fried Chicken, all the big conglomerate restaurant types. That's not always the fact. You might run into some locals off of some of these roads, but in general, that's what you're going to get. Where if you take the smaller roads, the U.S. or state roads, you will be seeing a lot of local business. And if you're a kind of person that likes to, help out the local, if you're passing through an area and say, hey, you stop in, pick a store if you need something. You might find a small store. And if you, like I said, if you got time, if you're more leisurely driving through up to an area like that, and you want to take that. So that's kind of like an advantage there too, where it's like your interstates. And I think most people kind of know this, but it's what factors into my decisions sometimes too. If I have some time to kill, I might do that. Like if I want to stay on interstates, just in my case, I basically have to get up to Texarkana. So I have to make it to Texarkana to get any further up north. So I have the route. I could take 59, which is a US 59, goes through some towns. You've got some highway, goes through towns. You have to get off some exits. There's lights and the whole thing. But it's actually faster for me to do that than if I took the interstate, because if I take the interstate, it goes a different direction towards Dallas. So I have to go through Dallas and go around Dallas and then come down 30 and come across again. So if I'm in the mood where it's kind of like I don't want to have to deal with all the turnoffs and the lights and everything like that, I'll do the extra hour. So that might be another factor too. Stay on the interstate. It's usually easier, so it's less stress in for most part. So as long as you like highway driving, it's a lot easier to go on that. And so that's you choose your routes. You make you plan your routes and make those choices. And now, as far as like obviously you're driving in a vehicle. Things notes that I would put in for vehicle. First thing that I would say, no matter what kind of vehicle you have, obviously make sure that it's in in good shape. Check it out before you leave and all that. Um, but also get AAA or some kind of dependable roadside assistance service. It's worth it. It's definitely worth it. It's gonna save you money in the long term. Let's say if you pay. Um, I think right now I don't know if it's just an app. Now, at least get the basic. But I've got because I travel so much. I've got the top tier of AAA, and I think it's going for 110, $120 a year. But I've used that. I've actually used that, and the top tier, it gives you one 200-mile tow one. So you got towing, they'll tow your car anytime. If it's short distance, you got unlimited towing if you need it, and if for short distance, I think you get like up to 200-mile tows, and a 200-mile if you need it. So for me, that works. You might think, well, okay, if you get breakdown locally somewhere, you're not in a real big hurry or something like that, you might want to get towed to the closest area that you can, and if you need that service. And obviously you've got also, if you need a jump, I'm at a point right now where I don't want to change my tires anymore. So if I can I'll do it if it looks like AAA can't get to me for an hour or something like that. But usually AAA is pretty good. If you're anywhere near a major city or a major intersection of highways or something like that, there's usually a pretty good response. So you have to check that out. Certain times, you have to wait, but overall, it's something that you're going to be glad that you have if you have something like that. So I wouldn't. In my situation where I'm at, I wouldn't leave and do a long trip without having that kind of a thing behind me. And I when I didn't have it, I I had issues, and I got stuck in a couple situations where those are other stories that I might tell some other time. But so do that. Now the vehicle you choose, like people might be thinking, well, it's best to get a vehicle that gets, like a hybrid or electric, electric vehicle. I'm not even going to go there because that's your choice to do electric. Now you have to find, obviously with electric, you have to find infrastructure. You have to charge your vehicle. If you're doing long drives, then you have to budget in that half hour, 45 minutes, whatever it's going to take to charge your vehicle once you find the charging place. So that's something that if you are with an electric vehicle. And the other thing about electric vehicles, most of them are pretty small. Um, and if you get a vehicle that gets high mileage, they're usually pretty small too. If you want to get 40, 50 miles per gallon on a small vehicle, and that's one option. But as I go here, you kind of see is that the reason I drive a minivan. I have a minivan, and it's a Dodge Grand Caravan. I used to have a 2014. That's the one. Eventually had some trouble. I traded that in, and I got 2016. And there's a reason I got it 2016. Some of the same features and that. But bottom line, the reason I like the Caravans because you can fold those seats underneath. I actually throw a twin mattress, and you'll see if you go to my 30 Days on the Road travel log series. I kind of go over that too, but yeah, I throw like just a small mattress. I've had this mattress for years and years and years, and I keep it as an extra bed here, and I'll throw it in the van for that purpose. And I'm still able to fit enough of my stuff. I carry a little small PA and whatever else I need to take with me. and I got my way of packing it all in. Um, but what that does, it saves me any kind of expense for lodging where I will sleep in that thing. I've got it. You got it to a point where I'll sleep certain nights. I try to not do like a whole tour. I hopefully try to get to a friend's house. There have been times when I've said, okay, I'm gonna be here for a couple days. I will get a couple cheap motel room, a couple nights of a cheap motel room for this area if I'm going to be there, and if I've been sleeping in a van, sleeping in a van can be, especially when if it gets hot or cold and you don't want to keep the van running overnight. There's ways to do that too, to have an extra battery, and that's something to get into too. But now we're talking not budget anymore. We're talking to, but this is something that I've been doing, and it's been fairly successful for me. And it's been certain. It wakes you up when if it starts getting hot in the van. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I'm usually like to sleep past then, especially if I did a gig till 1 or 2, night before. So that's kind of early to be getting up, and it's not the most. It's comfortable enough for me. You get used to it. So that's an option. Get a big back seat. Get get a get a sedan. I used to have Chevys, Chevy Impalas. The back seats are pretty good. I've slept in those a couple times. Pretty pretty comfortably enough where especially when I was young. Now I got creaks and a bit of arthritis and all that. And I prefer to stretch out a little bit. So it works out. The van works out. Minivan works out pretty well. I used to have full size van too. I had to really dialed in at one point. I had a couple of nice full size vans that I took. This is back mid '90s when I first came down to Texas. I would drive down the full size van. Less gas mileage. I figured the reason I went to the minivan is that I could still make the minivan work to stay in, and the guy mileage was a little better. It was I'm talking 50% better than those old vans, gas guzzler vans. So, but yeah, you have to choose. If you're going to choose a vehicle to do consistently some long little touring, bare bones touring, and that you might consider getting something that you comfortably can sleep in. Um, and I go into some of these rest stops and truck stops, and there are people that are living in their vehicles. I mean, you can go online, you go on YouTube, and there's people that will do little travel logs of themselves. Not so much travel log. I mean, that's the way they live, and people live out of their vans. There's the whole concept of van life and that. So, uh, but for me, I'm not a van life person. I just when I'm on the road, I'll sleep in the van. Like, I've got it set up where I can. If I'm in a situation where I can sleep somewhere else, I do. But if it's sometimes it's more comfortable even to sleep at somebody's house. If they've got totally different hours, and I don't want to wake them. I don't want to be whatever. It's like so I'll when I do now finding a place to. That's one of the things that I have down the line here. I'm going to bump it up because we're talking about this is finding a place to sleep. So you've got uh, truck stops and you have rest stops, rest areas or rest stops. Now there's like I said, advantages, disadvantages to both of them. I'll go rest stops first. Okay, rest stops. Um, you have to be careful of some security there. What I've noticed lately, though, is during the day it's never too much of an issue. If you want to pull over, take a nap or something during the day, or I usually don't have that too much of an issue. What I wouldn't do is leave your windows 100% open, and I mean, and fall asleep. You never know what's going to happen, but you can crack your windows if it's cool enough out. Obviously, during the summer, unless you can find a real nice shaded area, and I've done that before, where I found in the afternoon. There's a place in Effingham, a little park that I go to, and I find this tree, and I go and I just it's kind of a half legal way a parking spot, and I'll go in and sleep, for an hour or two just to catch a nap. I'm always trying to catch naps. on the road a lot of times. So, but you have to find the right situation. But that night, no, normally you're sleeping overnight. Um, these rest stops are loaded with truckers. They're all over. I mean, if you've been to rest stops at night, you've seen truckers use them. They're loading them up. They're parked up and down the driveways. It's packed. And lately, this is something that's kind of new in the last few years, is they'll have signs in some of the states with the availability of parking spots in rest stops. So they'll have 5, 0, 1, 2, 10, whatever it is. There's so that the truckers can see. And I say, okay, the next rest stop, and a little less list for the various rest stops coming up. So there's some states that have gone to that. But for cars, you really never have to worry. I mean, if you're in a car or a van or something that's not a commercial vehicle, you could park it, in a rest stop and get your sleep there if you want. Okay, and if you are in a rest stop and you need to go into the John and it's kind of deserted, there's nobody else looks like is walking and stuff like that. If you are feeling uncomfortable, one thing I would say is don't take anything valuable in with you. Leave your wallet, your phone. Make sure you lock your door. Do what you got to do in the building. Get out there. So that's obviously anywhere you go, there's going to be situations, but normally there is some traffic. Like I said, with all those truckers there, they're usually in and out. But if you're in a position where at a rest stop where it's not a little bit and you need to sleep, there are some better ones. There's really good rest stops. I remember I just made a little live video about the Rend Lake. It's in southern Illinois, and that's a really good rest stop. And one of the reasons I like it is because there is that shade. There's an area where you can park where you can sleep, and then in the morning when the sun comes up, it'll hit the trees and you got shade. You'll have shade. So if you know the right spots so I mean you look for those kinds of little things too. So I could sleep till 11 or noon, and when it's kind of warm out, where usually 8 morning it's starting to get hot in there, 8, 9 in the morning. So you look for those little things, and it's a very clean rest stop. In general, most Illinois rest stops are pretty good. Certain states are better than other states. Usually I've found I can maybe do a show and we'll talk about rest stops through all the states that I went to, but you'll kind of as you I mean, there was one terrible one. I remember the one in Arkansas that used to be a decent one, and they built a new building. It was like filthy. The place was like totally, I don't know. Nobody had cleaned it in at least a day or two. And with the traffic through there, you need to, a couple, 2, 3 times a day somebody's got to go in there and check out and see what's going on. But I digress a little bit on that. But these are things to look at too. In general, most of the time though, lately, I've been focusing on doing truck stops. Truck stops are best, just for the fact of like I said, it's safer. And I'm a solo guy. I'm not really scared to go into rest stops at night. And that, like I said, I'm not going to take in a fat wallet with $500 in it or something, and whatever. So I mean, to make myself, and if I've never been had a confrontation, but if ever did, at least I don't have that, and so it isn't like take my wallet kind of thing. So who knows what I'd do in those situations, but don't get yourself killed. But there's and a lot of rest stops do have security, like certain states do have in certain rest stops. So that's you can check and see if you can check in advance and see if there's security at the rest stops. They have a way to check into that. And but going back to truck stops, I like truck stops a lot. It's a cultural experience going into a truck stop, and in a sense, I mean, you meet some interesting people, and then there's always at all truck stops And most truck stops, I've found a few that were pretty tight. There's usually a pretty good area that of car parking where you can park. Sometimes there'll be too much lighting where it's kind of like you're trying to get to sleep at night and there's like lights all over, well lit. Some are got areas where you can find where it's not as lit, and but and a lot of people live in these from truck stop to truck stop. I remember the one in Indianapolis. It's the world's busiest or the country's busiest flying J. That's what the workers told me there at one time. Started conversation, and I said, "Man, this place looks real busy." Yeah, there's the busiest flying J in the system, and whatever. So it's like, yeah, and like a lot of different people, a lot of crazy people out there. But I mean, it's uh, since it has a lot of activity, a lot of back. I mean, it's always people. You get 3, 4 in the morning, doesn't matter. There's always people in and out of there. So it's I feel more comfortable in those situations of staying in the truck stop. And for me, and it's and it's 24 hours, so you have a bathroom to use. Um, you have amenities. Usually, it's kind of overpriced, but you know, any all the convenience store are pretty expensive anyway, so they're like a convenience store type thing. And a lot of them will have hot food till fairly late, and if you want to grab some, a lot of times when you're on the road, obviously, unless you're bringing your stuff and camping and doing the cooking and that, I usually keep a cooler with some cold items, maybe some cold cuts. Uh, I'll do eggs. Hard boiled eggs is a big thing for me. I'm on low carb now, so it's like pretty much less carby. So I don't even if I have cold cuts, I'm not doing sandwiches now. I'm just eating them. Put some mayo on them. That's a way to kind of eat them. You know, uh, and different things that'll keep more. I bring like jerky or Slim Jim type stuff. Them do a lot of that. So yeah, food stuff on the road is it's easy to get in the habit of eating a lot of junk. So be just kind of plan it and think about stuff, especially if you're going in the summer, that you're just things spoil easily. You keep a cooler going. I keep a cooler going, and then where to get ice. Ice is expensive at some places. I've been going to Dollar Trees a lot. They still have ice. They just raised their price to $2 on ice. They were a dollar when they were really Dollar Tree, and then they went up to dollar and a quarter tree. Where everything was dollar and a quarter. I got the ice for dollar and a quarter. Now if stuff's dollar and a quarter, and they got different price, so they're turning into like a Family Dollar or Dollar General type store where it isn't really, you know, they got just stuff that whatever the price is. So it's kind of getting there for that. But that's a whole nother episode that we could explore into that world. Um, but it applies to where I do look for Dollar Trees to buy. I'd rather pay $2 for a 7-pack ice than 350. So it's finding these little ways to save a buck or two here and there. So you got to be what do you call it? Frugal, vigilant about finding these places. And that leads me into gas. Obviously, finding gas that's reasonably priced. I find that if I'm on an interstate and I'm going and I'm deciding I'm going to need some gas, I'm usually and I don't know places that I usually go and that I'll look for a place that has several gas stations. You can get off a small road, might have one gas station or even two, but if you find one that has like five or six, there's a really good chance that's going to be probably your cheapest gas that you're going to find along the way. Uh, just for the fact of competition, because they all have to kind of like if one undercuts another, they have to keep, everybody has to be in the same basic price range. Not always the way it is, but most of the time you'll find that most of those businesses want to keep in the same price range, and they track customers. That's what it's all about. So I find that there are exceptions. all of a sudden I had to get some gas. I stopped at this like this little place, was like a small gas station off of the road. I think it was off I-30 between Little Rock and Memphis. Um, there was just I forgot what the exit name was, but just so happened that I got off. I said, well, okay, I'm probably going to pay a little extra. Mom get some gas until I can get full tank somewhere. But it was wound up being like 10 cents cheaper than what I was, expecting in that area, and that. So I filled up there. So it's that can happen. I go up through Illinois, and I usually would stop. I always stopped at Gilman, the Gilman exit on I-57 heading north. And there's like three or and so I stopped there, and I usually got the cheaper gas, the cheapest gas I can get before I hit Chicago area, which is way expensive. I try to get gas there. I try to fill up. Lately, I've been going up, and it hasn't really been all that cheap. It's been cheaper than Chicago, but not. Usually, it was like 40, 50 cents cheaper. Um, if you go further downstate, I mean, I travel Illinois a lot. If you go further downstate, Effingham's usually about 20, 30 cents cheaper than what Gilman was. And then like they're 50 cents. You're looking like a buck difference between Effingham a lot of times. And that all fluctuates. I'm interested to see what it's going to be like going up now. We got probably had a reprieve from last year. Last year's July was pretty nasty as far as prices for gas. It was a little better this year. And now it's gone up a little bit, about a dime. It looks like it's gone up about a dime to 15 cents around here in Houston, at least, over the last couple weeks. So hopefully it won't go up too much more. But anyways, yeah, you're always looking for that. It's a game. It's a game I play. It keeps me interested. Where am I going to get the cheapest gas? Where's the next one? There's a place that before I hit Illinois, I always get Missouri is a state that usually has cheaper gas. Really, until you hit Illinois, it's like the gas prices are usually pretty similar between Arkansas and used to be Missouri was a lot cheaper, but Arkansas is pretty. In East Texas, if you take through 59, the prices are a little higher, but you just find that's something I usually full up in Houston and make it up to around Texarkana. So you figure out where you're going to stops are going to be. If another rule is if you're closer to a metropolitan area, you're normally going to get like Little Rock. You can find some pretty cheap gas in Little Rock. The big problem in Little Rock sometimes is though if you get off, there's a stretch of I-40 or I-30 as you're going into Little Rock, where you can get off in some of the gas stations but sometimes it's hard to get back on the highway. So you get twisted around a little bit. I remember a couple times, and then it took me off one time that I was trying to get to the place. I had to go 2-3 blocks to find the gas station. So it isn't like, you're on the highway. So, but, worth a chance sometimes. Sometimes if I see it and I'm saying, this looks like maybe it's looking like a good get off, get on kind of a place. So all these little games that you're playing on the road to budget to keep because I ain't making much money on the road. Usually if I do take these little tours, if I'm breaking even, I'm good. If I make a little money, if I make some decent money, that's a big deal. I try, once I hit some of these gigs like this time going up, I'm going to lose money because I know I'm mainly going up for the reunion. I've got a couple gigs that'll pay maybe half my gas, but put those two together. And but at least I don't have to pay the whole thing. I'm always looking, wherever I travel, I'm always looking to play. I'm always looking to play, have a gig, or at least be able to find an open mic or do something, even if I fly somewhere. But as far as keeping a budget with the travel, I find places, and I'd like to connect the dots more and get more. I've been trying to work on Little Rock lately. So we'll see if I can get something in there. I've had some opportunities in Memphis, Nashville. I don't get paid when I just stop and do songwriter nights, quick songwriter nights, and they get up. Now in Indianapolis, I've established one place now, and Northwest Indiana, I have one place where I can every other tour. Usually I stop in there. But usually I get up to Chicago and I'm able, with my buddy Marlon, we usually pick up a few gigs. And Central Illinois, I have a couple things. I'm still connecting the dots and something that I do. And let me see where else. What else was I did I have on my list here to go over? Yeah, so I mean, as far as stay with friends, try to travel to areas where oh, showers. Oh yeah, that this is a big one too. All right, obviously you're on the road. You want to be able to take a shower somewhere. I mean, you know you got a couple days to your destination. If even if you have a friend, let's say I have friends in Chicago, and I play somewhere along the road, and I don't have anyone where to stay, uh, and that or somebody's going to offer me a shower stall. Uh, Personally, what I do is when I'm looking in the areas, I have a gym membership with LA Fitness personally, and they have two companies now. They have LA Fitness and Esporta. Same company. I can use either or. And Little Rock now it's Esporta. Memphis they have Esportas. Their LA Fitness is up in Indianapolis and Chicago, and there's some Esportas up in Chicago. So I'm looking at, and one of the reasons I got hooked up because Chicago had LA Fitness and Houston has LA Fitness, Austin has it, Dallas. So most of the places I'm going, I'm able to use the gym, and I'm a active workout guy, so I try to do some workout, even if I'm just getting in the sauna, hopping on a treadmill for a little bit, whatever. Get a shower. It's great. It's great to do on the road if you can get that into that situation. There's the YMCA. I used to be a YMCA member, and when I travel places, there's always a YMCA. They've been a little bit more expensive uh, than something like an LA Fitness, but they're actually even in more communities. There's a lot of places that don't have LA Fitnesses. Nashville being one. So when I'm in Nashville area, from what I heard, they used to have one, but didn't survive. Um, so yeah, there's certain. And then what's the other one? Planet Fitness. I think that's a national one. There was a guy I ran into, another touring guy in Indianapolis. I remember, and he was telling me that I think I think it was Planet Fitness, and so it's worth it if you are doing enough of traveling, and if it's in your community, I mean, to use it, it's and you could probably get a gym membership just to one gym, but if it has a national survey, it's worth it to get it if you're going to be traveling at all. Find yourself using it if you know you're going to go into areas where that's thing. So think about that. Showers. If you take showers at truck stops will have showers, and you know they get to be expensive, like $15 for a shower. I remember I paid about that. That's kind of a going rate. Um, so that's an option. I've done that before. When I was really kind of desperate, I needed a shower real bad, and so I went into I forgot what location it was at, but that was I think I did it twice, but in the last 2 years I did it at one time, because I'm always in areas like I said where I can get that, or if I'm at obviously if I'm staying at somebody's house I can, and even if I'm staying up in Chicago, there's LA Fitnesses in Chicago. I'll take my showers there because I'll get a quick workout as soon as I get done working. So once in a while I'll use somebody's hospitality to take a shower at someone's house and that. But you have to keep that in mind. Is you're on that bear. All of a sudden, if you're taking a daily shower at truck stops, that extra $15 a day adds up, and and you're looking at then you're looking at you got to eat along the road. We talked a little bit about you keep a cooler, keep some things that don't spoil in there readily, because you might like I said, you might be looking for ice, and it's like you don't want to have to pay that price for the ice every like twice a day if it's hot in the summer like that. Usually, if I get a bag of ice, I usually try to stretch it out to about 2 days. And if I had some real perishables in there, that wouldn't work. I'd have to keep it. I'd have to change it daily at least. And so yeah, be aware of what you're trying to preserve in these coolers. One of the things that I do is I drink Powerade or Gatorade, whichever one I can get cheaper, and usually it's Powerade. And I do. I obviously I'm on low carb. I do zero. I don't do the zero sugar. And one of the reasons I do it, I've been trying to get so I don't drink as much carbonate. I like carbonated stuff. I'll drink sodas like diet sodas and stuff. But I've kind of switched over a little bit more to that because it's not carbonated, and also you can drink it warm. You could drink it lukewarm or just a little bit cool. Where you think of a soda, you drink a whatever a diet Seven Up or Diet Coke or something. That ain't making it. It's kind of like when it's not cold. So you're looking for cold, um, something that if you can't keep it cold, the Powerade's good. I try to keep it cold, but if I'm on that edge and I still want something to drink, and obviously water, drink. You make sure you take a lot of water with you too. So that's my usual thing. Powerades. I'll take some sodas, you know, and but mostly I'm drinking Powerade and water when I'm on the road. And yeah, so I think pretty much I covered most of the kind of like the things that you have to kind of like what ways to kind of save your money. There's also tolls. I avoid toll roads even when I'm around Houston here as much as I can. There are a couple of ways you just can't. It's really hard to get somewhere without doing a toll. So I'll bite the bullet and pay the toll. Look at that in advance. When I go through Oklahoma a lot, there's the Oklahoma has the turnpike. So if you're on the main highway coming out of like St. Louis and you're following your Route 66, which is actually now it's 44 would be the interstate that runs along the old 66 in that area. So it's like in Illinois it's 55, and then you come through St. Louis, and 44 out of St. Louis will follow along where that 66 is. But eventually you're going to run into that turnpike, that Will Rogers Turnpike, and there's a few bucks you got to pay to get through there to get into the past Tulsa, and then there's another tollway if I want to come into Texas. That it's more of a direct route to take the tollway to come in than to go through Oklahoma City and come down through. So I mean, there's these little choices you make, and it might be influenced by that. So avoid tolls if you want. Uh, I didn't talk a whole lot about cops. Obviously you're looking, you're on highways, and the police it's gonna be different for the various police. Um, if you're on the more rural roads or the U.S. highways or the state highways, you're coming through a lot of municipalities and different counties. So you're dealing with county. You're often seeing county police and town police and whatever. Um, don't want to compare one with the other, but I've had issues with smaller community police, especially when I had Illinois plates and I was coming down to Texas before I moved to Texas in the 90s. I got stopped twice, and had my van totally searched, and they stopped me for no reason. And so I mean that's something that happens. Whether it's legal or not doesn't matter to them. They're going to stop you. If you want to fight them, that's your choice. But you got to watch out. That'll happen more on those smaller roads because they know that they're thinking in their mind that the interstates are being patrolled by the state police, and they think that maybe the drug runners are thinking it's a lot easier to get through on these other things. Hey, they can slip by us, huh? So they're a little bit more even crazier about making stops, and there's more speed traps along there too. So be careful if you're on these roads. Make sure you do if you're going to do over the limit. Make sure it's in an area where there's not cops. There's the fuzz busters and different things or whatever. But if you want to go that route, I haven't had an issue. I had one stop, I think in Indianapolis, but I got let go. I wasn't doing too. It was the middle of the night, nobody, and the guy stopped me. I was like doing 10 over or something. But uh, for all the driving I do, I haven't. Early on, I did get a few tickets. I remember. Once you learn kind of a certain route too, you kind of know where the speed traps are going to be. coming across the Mississippi River over the bridge from on 57 from Missouri into Illinois. You go into Cairo, Illinois. I remember I got stopped and got a ticket from a Cairo cop. He was waiting right over the bridge there, and it changes. It's like at the time it was 65 to 55. So once you're over the bridge, it was 55. So two of us, he stopped both of us at the same time, which is crazy. I think I was doing like 62 or something. I don't know. So it was like, it's crazy. But you got to watch out. Pete, they're looking to make some revenue. It ain't about public safety. It's pretty much about revenue in most of those situations. Because think about it. It's like if you're driving safely, you get a few miles over the speed limit. Is stopping you going to provide any public safety on an empty road? I can see if it was in the heavy traffic, and a lot of times you get lost in the heavy traffic anyway. But I digress there too. I've got I could do a whole episode on that. So yeah, we talked about gas. We talked about looking at your time for travel. If you got some time, what's a better way to take if you want to have the old scenic route, type thing. That those rural highways through East Texas. That's a real nice drive, Piney Woods and that. And I take it because it's actually, in the long run, it saves me about an hour than if I went through Dallas. What I've been doing some is I go through Dallas either up or back, and I'll stop at a couple events. There's some Monday night events that I like to do Monday or Tuesday. So for early week, if I can get through Dallas on my way up or back, I try to do that. This time I might be able to. We'll have to see. But for the most part, I'm beelining it up for my next trip up. I don't want to. It's hard to call it a tour. I'm just going to call it my reunion tour because I'm going up for my high school reunion and just a couple little things, couple gigs that I'm doing. Also going to see some relatives and all that. So it's more of a half personal, half working, and then in the fall I'll take a more of a 2 to 3 week excursion up through again. I'm trying to keep connections up in that area. Also in Florida lately, I've been flying. That's where my sister lives. So I can fly there, and I have a PA that I have there that I use, small PA that I've dedicated to that area, and a guitar. And so I'm looking to, and I can get cheap flights. I can do the Spirit thing, and they've been really cheap lately. Where I can fly round trip for under $100, $80, 70, 80, 90, whatever. I mean, it's been fluctuating, but it's been pretty cheap. Doing Spirit to Chicago is not as cheap. It's not cost effective, where I can save that much money and I don't have. Marlon's got a PA. If I want to just go to Chicago, I can do that still and figure out a way. But that's my life, But hopefully, those little things here that I brought up might help you to kind of think about when you're planning a trip, whether you are going up for music performances, or if you're just going up you want to see the world and see the heartland of the United States. And you're at Folk U Zeus. If you are watching this and you're still watching it, hit the like button. Make sure you hit the like button. If you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. It always helps out. And I'm just trying to get this thing off the ground little by little. Eventually, I'll be having guests. I just found out that I got my first review for the latest album that I have. If you're interested in my music, I just released a album entitled Pardon Me. And that's online at bandcamp.com. Just go to Mark Zeus, MarkZeus.com, and you can find the link directly. One of the first things you'll see is to the latest Thunderbolts and that. And other links and things that you can find there. Don't forget, if you're interested in my travels at all, like, being the subject that we talked about today, if you want to check out what I was doing last last summer regarding that. 30 Days on the Road is a series at youtube.com/Mark Zeus Music. And plus, I have a bunch of music videos there and all that stuff. So, anyway, so yeah, I got people ringing me here. I think I don't know what's going on, so I have to get to all that stuff. And thank you again for tuning in. Tell everybody about this channel. I will be out of town for one. I probably miss one, maybe two, but I'm going to keep trying to do this Sunday on a regular basis whenever I'm in Houston. They don't let me do remotes from my devices, and it's hard to set the laptop up in the right situation for that. So whenever I'm here, I will be doing it, and I'll be here for a good stretch in fall and into the winter. But anyway, see you all later. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.